hard. It is overwhelming sometimes, but it's not hard.
I like how you said, this younger generation, this,
Uh,
हम बड़े हो गए. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Parenthood, where we dive into the beautiful, messy, inspiring, and often surprising world of modern parenthood. I am Neha Garg, your host, and here on Parenthood, we are all about real stories from real parents. No filter, no gloss, just the honest ups and downs of raising a family while navigating the demands of our personal and professional lives. This week, we have a truly special guest joining us, Apoorva Maheshwari, the head of marketing at Bestseller India. Apoorva is not just a marketing powerhouse, she is also a dedicated mom of two and has been with her partner Ruchir for 14 years. As she continues to learn and grow in her parenting journey, she has found ways to be kinder to herself, a lesson we all need to hear more about. Today, she is here to share her reflections on balancing family, partnership, and self care while raising her daughter A and son V. We'll hear her story, her insights, and perhaps a few surprises along the way. So grab a cup of tea or coffee, settle in, and let's dive into Apoorva's world. Apoorva, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you, Neha. So am I, if you can't gauge that from my voice.
And you're someone who wears many hats, but more than anything, I think you embody the idea of constantly evolving as a parent. To kick things off, let's start with a little bit about you. If you were to describe yourself using only three words or phrases that capture the essence of who you are, what would they be and why do those words resonate with you?
I would describe, I think the first word that would describe me is curious.
Mm-hmm.
I always am learning. I always want to learn. I always want to get to the why and the how and the who and all of it. So, curious is one. I'm also adventurous. I think all my decisions in life are guided by a sense or a spirit of adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. And curious, adventurous, and I think evolving and learning. Yeah, I
Mm.
think you got that right there about me. That's the joy of knowing people over a period of time, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. And, talking about knowing people over a time, I know you are someone who tells stories for a living in one way or another, whether it's in marketing or through the lives you touch personally. So, if your life was a book, what would be its title? And if you could flip open to the current chapter, what would it be called? And how does it feel different from all the ones before it?
Hmm. Ah, that's an interesting question. I've actually never really thought about a, a book about myself per se, but if there were to be a book about me, I think the title of that book would be "She Lived and She Laughed."
Uh-huh. Truly, your laugh is something that I remember truly, truly from our college days.
It has not changed, unfortunately.
Or
I thought
fortunately.
with age I would get daintier and like, but that has not really happened. Yeah, and the current chapter would really be, I think, more about really settling in my skin now or knowing myself better.
Yeah.
And it's a function of time, right? It's a function of time, and of stumbling and of learning and experimenting, etc., etc. But I think now I'm in that space in life, both, in life as well as mind space, where uh, I truly feel like, okay, this is what, life was panning out towards, and this is a sense of arrival and a sense of who I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. And let's talk about your beautiful family now. Can you introduce all of us to your little tribe? Tell us
Yeah.
about your children, what are their ages, and what's something that makes each of them uniquely them?
Oh my God, I love this question. I can talk about my family till cows come to home.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
we're here for. So go on.
all right, so as I shared with you, I'm married to Ruchir. We've known each other for almost close to 2 decades now. We've been married for now 14 years.
Yeah.
Um, and and again, because of the sheer amount of time and the life stages that we've sort of traversed together, sometimes hand in hand and sometimes not really.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so again, he's also in that space where he's tried, experimented, learned, etc., etc., and now he's in that space where he's arrived as the person that he is.
Yeah.
It's lovely to see that evolution and to see that evolution as his friend, his spouse, as the father of my children. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's Rite. Um, and and yet still, despite thinking that the ins and outs of somebody over a period of time, and then they go out and they learn something new and they surprise you. So yeah, um, that's my husband, and we have two beautiful children. So Adrija is my daughter.
Yeah.
That's A.
Yeah.
I also call her Ferret because when she was born, she was this mousy little child. She's 9 now, and she's so much like me and so much like Ruchir, and I cannot wait to see the person that she's going to turn out to be because she's all the signs, right? She's somebody who's constantly like challenging us in the house. She's somebody who constantly keeps us right and on our toes. Both me and Ruchir, I think she was like she's our first child, right? So that was the first experiment per se.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, last almost 10 years with her and parenting her and being parented by her also to a certain degree. But I
Yeah.
try not to do that, and I try not like put that responsibility on her, though she naturally has a tendency to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So can't wait to see what she's going to turn up in life and do in life. Yeah. And then we have our son, Varenya. Varenya is going to turn 5 actually next month.
Oh,
So
wow.
milestone birthday, yeah, milestone birthday for him. He came along just before the pandemic. So the first 2 years with him were in the pandemic, working from home, the lockdowns, all of it. It was quite something, but also I think it was a blessing in disguise
Yeah.
because I got to spend all of that time with him, right?
Yeah.
And really form those deep bonds because then as soon as the pandemic was over, we went back, he went to school, I went to working full time from office.
Yeah.
Um, but like he's this incredible little passionate, dedicated, such a family oriented little boy. It's just they're so different from each other, but yeah, it's just I think everybody in my house has a very strong, very pronounced personality.
Yeah.
So
Just
it's an
like
interesting household. Yeah, just like me. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like sometimes imagine I have to take the back seat. I'm like, okay, you guys are doing everything. You know what? I'm just going to quietly support you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about, having everybody having strong personalities. So let's talk family dynamics. What is the vibe like in the household? What's the energy like at home? And what are some of the little rituals or moments that define your day-to-day family life?
So, when we started off as the two of us, me and
Yeah,
Ruchir, and you've known us from campus, right? Like you
yeah,
remember what Ruchir and I were
yeah,
and what early years for either relationship or marriage were for us. We started off as like two diametrically, different people and very complementary in that sense because
yeah,
I had a different, at a values level, we are the same, right? We
yeah,
value the same things, which is so helpful in a marriage.
yeah,
But purely as people, we are very different people. We had different interests, etc., etc. So that's that. I think the family environment or the dynamics at home are of, I would say, very growth oriented
mm-hmm.
because everybody is very growth oriented and wanting to learn and improve in my house. That's something that is a constant. I'm doing something or I'm learning something. Ruchir is doing something. Adrija is doing something. So Bharenia is doing his own thing. So one is growth oriented. The other is also of equal sort of challenging equals.
Yeah,
So that is something like my children have the absolute. freedom and authority to call me out or call Ruchir out
Yeah.
if they think that we're saying something or we're doing something which does not sit well with either them or the values that we try and tell them, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
um, they have that and they call us out all the time if they think that we're not doing something right, right? So which I think is something that I really value in our household.
Yeah, yeah. And you said, Adrija and Varinya, they are quite different, yet they are very much like you and Ruchir at a fundamental level. So
Hmm.
how are they as siblings? What's their equation like?
So obviously, and I'm a firstborn daughter, right? I'm an
Yeah,
eldest daughter in my house, and Atrija is exactly that, right? Like
yeah,
I think firstborn daughters have this natural tendency to lead, to take charge of a situation, etc., etc., and Atrija tends to do that.
yeah,
And you have to tell her, you have to remind her that there are grown-ups around you who can take these decisions. Why don't you go and be the child that you are?
yeah,
Um, but she also thinks, and she does, like she will help us out with, with Varenia's studies or his homework, or if he needs a bit of disciplining, or if he needs to be, looked after sometimes. So
yeah.
she will just naturally take that charge. That's one. Bethania loves his sister immensely,
Wow.
immensely. Uh, so, so if I am traveling or if my husband's busy with work or anything of the sort, right? Like he will just gravitate towards his sister for guidance or for care or for if I've scolded him, for example, he will go to her for comfort, right? And we'll gang up. And it's just the sweetest thing. I'm like, "अब तुम पे गुस्सा कैसे हो सकते हो? तुम्हें नहीं
Right.
हो."
And that word that comes to my mind, it's funny because we are talking about parenthood, but when you talk of Adrija, and one word that comes to my mind when you talk of firstborn daughters also is mothering. The thing that I see her doing is exactly like taking after you and taking care of everyone around her, and it's just such a warm thing to hear about. I'm sure it gets overwhelming for you in ways that we can't fathom, but from outside, it just sounds very, very warm.
Yeah, it is warm, but Neha, the thing is that, and because I have had a lived experience there, right?
Yeah,
Um, you also need to teach teach the daughters or the eldest daughters to also step back sometimes, right?
right.
Like or regulate that instinct
Yeah, yeah,
because that is something that and I try and do that with Adrija, like because I know that she has, and it's sometimes it's weight that she does not really need to carry.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I
It's
try and teach her. Like I
yeah,
know it naturally comes to you, and it instinctively comes to you, but there are people who can do this.
yeah. It's funny you say that because when I think of myself, I'm also a firstborn daughter and eldest, around. So that instinct is there in me, and so instinctively and so innately, I was so scared of having a girl uh that because I'll have to make her unlearn all of those things that I might teach her uh very, very tacitly. So I'm just so glad you're doing that differently, and you realizing that it's just very wholesome to hear about. But I want to know about, your journey as a parent. I'm sure, especially for a person like you said, your life is very adventurous. You love adventures. You love I see you as a very, very strong individual in her own sense. But and I'm sure becoming a parent for you was a profound shift. So how did your journey into motherhood begin? Was it something that was always on the cards for you? How did it happen? And were there any moments along the way that really stood out and shaped you as a mom?
Yeah. So I think couple of things, right? Was it something that was always on the cards for me? No, not really. I think Ruchir is, and I remember him as, like he was a boy when I met him.
Yeah,
And I remember thinking in my head, like he's such a born dad, right? Like
yeah,
kids and our friends' kids would naturally find themselves laughing in his arms and, like sleeping off in his arms and
Yeah.
being easy around him, right? I would, on the other hand, really fumble around children when I was younger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, the journey started. So we wanted to start a family. As I said, it was one of the adventures that we went
Yeah.
on together. It was in the spirit of adventure,
Yeah.
parenting, more than anything else. And I became a mom very early on in my life. I was 28 when Adrija came along.
Yeah.
And so so I think it started off with a lot of, like, I think worry and fear for me, because I just simply was so out of depth
Yeah.
when she came along, right? And
Yeah.
she was this tiny little, as I said, chotu sa baby.
Yeah.
um, so that was that, and I really truly learned along the way with Ruchir and myself, and discovered how I want to be a parent and how I want to be a mother.
Yeah.
It was a learning curve. I think by the time Varinia came along, I was a lot more, how do I say, a lot more defined in terms of
Yeah.
what my parenting style is and how I want to mother, and what were the mistakes that I did when Adrija was growing up, and then how I sort of corrected that when Varinia came along.
Right.
Uh, and now where I am in terms of, as a parent, because a lot of those early years, I was also sort of growing professionally, whereas now I am in a position of far more responsibility.
Yeah.
And it keeps me away for days sometimes, away from the home and from the kids, etc. Or even if I'm in the city, right, because
Yeah.
of the demands of work, now I am in a different life stage. So it's, to me, it's season.
Yeah.
And that is what I think my, my broad learning from it is. I also try and read a lot about parenting. So I tend to, like, if I want, if I'm interested in something, or if I want to be good at something, I will make it an academic pursuit.
Yeah.
So I want to, it gives you a sense of control, right? अच्छा
Yeah.
थोड़ा तो पहले से पता चल जाएगा कि
Huh.
क्या आने वाला है. So I do read a lot. I also speak to parents a lot
Yeah.
whose children are now older than my kids, right?
Yeah.
So that I can anticipate what's coming and build that muscle that is needed when my kids need me to be in, in that mind space, or, to be able to handle what they are evolving
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very, very you. When I think of it, I mean, you are taking I mean, of course, you can't leave the person behind when you are parenting, but it's just so classic you, probably like this one. What would it be in your entire parenting journey of 9 years now?
One cherished memory. Oh, there's so many. But I think, parenting gets pointy and hard a lot of times. It
Yeah.
drains you out a lot. um, a lot.
Yeah.
I think as a parent, anybody would do better if they can zoom in on, like, these smaller micro moments, right? I
Yeah.
remember this one time, and this was before Varinia had come along. Me, Ruchir, and Adrija, we were traveling to Maldives,
Mm-hmm.
and we were swimming in the ocean,
Uh-huh.
and and Adrija would just, like, bounce from my arms to Ruchir's arms, and she'd come to my arms, and she'd be like, I want to
Wow.
go to Dada's, and then Dada's arms, and come back to Mama's arms. So it was just so nonsensical because she just kept bouncing in her arms, like, in this beautiful ocean. And yeah, we remember that, and I think Ruchir and I, we still, it brings us it brings a smile to our faces every time we remember that moment. I think
Yeah.
that's when, and she was, I think, barely like a year and a half or two, and that's when it was true. It felt truly special, right? After, because the first
Yeah.
2 years with the baby are really hard.
Yeah.
There's, like, no sleep, and it's excruciatingly difficult, and then they suddenly do something which is this nonsensical and joyous.
Yeah.
And yeah, for that.
Yeah. And ends up becoming a core memory for you.
Yeah, yeah, really, truly.
Yeah. You talked about, where you are in your life right now, much more settled, much more far more responsible in that sense. So let's talk about that. How do you balance everything out? Or do you manage to balance everything out in your own way, being a parent, a partner, a professional, and everything else in between?
I used to fret a lot about this balancing it out.
Yeah.
Uh, and you know how I am as a person, right? Like I like to operate at certain standards that I've set for myself. And I've
For
spent
others?
hmm,
And for others?
and for others, but yeah, a lot for myself. I'm probably the
Yeah.
hardest on myself.
Yeah.
And I've spent 3 decades being that person, right? And I think it's taken the last, especially the post-pandemic time. I think for us, for a lot of people in my generation, that was sort of a course correction or whatever, like a perspective shift that we needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I've gotten kinder on myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I still don't relax on the standards that I do because moving away from that makes me angsty. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I also know that um, it won't always be possible to manage it all.
Yeah.
And it's okay sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. And do you have a typical day? What
I
does
do.
what does a typical day look like?
I do. And I like my routine very much.
Yeah.
It gives me, again, a sense of control.
Yeah.
Typically, waking up early in the morning, packing tiffin for my kids, getting them ready for the school, then getting ready for work, then driving to work. I do not prefer being driven to work.
Yeah.
So that driving to work and driving back at the end of the day to home
Yeah.
with my music and my wheel is something which is purely the time for myself, being me.
Yeah.
I don't try not to take calls also at that time. So this whatever 30 minutes or 45 minutes that I have, depending on what Mumbai bestows on us,
Yeah.
is something that is purely for myself. And yeah, so that's that. I come into work and then it's just I think meetings after meetings, or if at all there's travel, work travel, then that. Really enjoy what I do. It energizes me deeply. It keeps me creative. And I enjoy the company of the people that I keep both at work and at home. Then I go home and I try and get home in time for the kids to be in the park. So, just
Yeah.
see them play a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I'm able to do that, sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
Uh, Usually dinner is with the family, so the four of us eat together.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the one non-negotiable. If I'm in the city, then that's my one non-negotiable for the day. I really like my meal time or my dinner with the family.
Yeah.
Uh, and then if at all there's homework to be done, then homework. Then I either read a book or play a game before the kids sleep. And yeah, and then there's a bit of time for me and Ruchir, and sometimes I read. I also need like time to myself.
Yeah.
The person that I am, I need, if even if it's just like 30 minutes, but I need that to
Yeah.
myself, with my own brain and my own ideas and my music and my books and whatever it is that catches my fancy.
Yeah, yeah. So, but if you don't get time during the day for yourself, how do you ensure that you get those, say, 30 minutes for yourself?
See, I think from what I used to be in terms of how I would get that time for myself versus now where I am, I'm a lot more practical about it now.
Yeah,
So as I said, I drive to work. I
yeah,
don't like being driven to work.
yeah,
Um, and that to me also is time to myself,
yeah,
right? That is
yeah,
uh, time observing things, listening to things, whether it is music. Mostly it's music. Sometimes it's a podcast that might catch my fancy.
yeah,
I try and catch, even if it's a few pages of a book, right? But like I try and read. I'm probably reading 2, 3 titles at the same time.
uh-huh.
Uh, I don't watch a lot of OTT content. Sometimes I do, but I'm not somebody who keeps up with that too much.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Again, because of simply the genres that get produced and what typically keeps me. हम सब मैथ्यू के बच्चे हैं तो हमको वही पसंद आता है. Yeah, so that's that. But there will be, Neha, there will be days and sometimes, not just days, but there will be weeks when
Yeah,
you don't get that to yourself. And you will start seeing the lack of time spent with yourself in how you behave. It will reflect in your behavior almost immediately. And to me, I think earlier, I couldn't read the signs and I couldn't pinpoint as to what was making me irritable or what was making me feel burnt out or all of that, right? But now I know, like I know it. And
yeah,
it's so easy to say, okay, I'm feeling all of this. Obviously, we're women, so we're on a cycle of the
yeah,
month. And it's also determined by hormones. But the second factor is really just this.
yeah,
I probably just need, a drive, or I just need like to go to an exhibition or something, right? Like I enjoy art, I enjoy culture, I enjoy music. I'm that person, and then I get that in, and I'm good. And now
yeah,
my family also knows this, right? Like
yeah,
my daughter knows this, my husband knows this, my son not so much.
yeah,
Yeah, but they know it. Like they know that Mama needs some time to herself. It could be, and it's not like it's exclusive, right? It's not just like Apoorva is going off and doing her own thing.
yeah, yeah,
It could just be a meal. Like me and my daughter, we enjoy Asian food a lot.
yeah,
We're the only two people in the house who enjoy it a lot. So it would just be a dinner with me and my, just a dinner with me and my daughter, and that sets me right. Like quality of time spent or quality of things consumed, not just food, but like what you
yeah,
put in the brain. So
yeah,
this is really important for me. And if
yeah,
I get that, I'm good.
yeah. Such a beautiful thing you said about, realization of how you were before and how you are now. So I as an outsider see a marked difference. Of course it would have come gradually, it's not an overnight change, but as you said, there are, I can see 2 3 trigger events in your life which might have sped things up. Arrival of your children, pandemic, and all of that. But apart from these 2 3 things, has there been anything significant which has kind of led you on this evolved path, or it's just been a gradual journey?
It's a function of time, Neha, honestly, and it's just time doing what time does, right? Um, were these things something that would have even occurred to me in my 20s? Not really, right?
Yeah,
Um, but now now I know the value of it, right?
yeah,
I know that I am a better manager, I am a better professional, I am a better mother, I'm a better wife, I'm a better daughter, better sister, in all of it, right? And also the people around you see the value in that,
yeah,
because you're irritable and you're annoying and you're annoyed,
yeah,
all of that, you typically take it out. You can't take it out externally, right? You take it
yeah,
out either internally or on the people around you.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, just I think it's just a matter of time, not events per se, right? I think the arrival of my kids has really um, changed the trajectory of my life and of the person that I am.
yeah,
I don't think I would have been this human being that I am today, or think or feel the way I do today, had it not been for my kids, right? I am not. I know for a fact that I wasn't the most patient person.
yeah,
Uh, but today I know that the muscle that I have on patience front is simply because of my children,
yeah,
right? And you see that with kids, right? You can't speed up a child eating or walking, or make them speak early or read early, etc. It's just time doing times things, and you have to see some time pass to
yeah.
know that, and have that faith, right? कि, हाँ हो जाएगा ठीक है ठीक है
Huh, huh.
हाँ
And
हो जाएगा ठीक है जो है ये मैंने this is for me something that I have really learned.
yeah,
क्योंकि पहले I would think that if I'm doing it ये हो ही जाएगा, मैं करूंगी
yeah,
तो हो जाएगा, but
yeah,
हाँ हो
yeah,
जाएगा is okay. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm thinking of the importance of, raising children, and importance of having a village in that raising of children. So do you have a village? What does your village look like? Who are your support system and people that you lean on?
So of the 9 years that I've been, we've been parents, we've lived for 4 years uh, in the city, same city that our village has been, village being the grandparents, right? Like they are the, I can't put to words what grandparents do for like a young family. It's
Yeah,
just incredible. Uh, but physically with them in the same city, not the same house because they lived in different parts
yeah,
of Delhi, was 4 years of the nine. And village for me is really um, the immediate family. So grandparents is one. We phone them in if if I have a lot of travel or if children had travel at the same time. We would call the grandparents. Also, I think the families, right, aunts and uncles,
yeah,
etc. They really, and especially if they're in the same city, they,
yeah,
even if they're able to take care of your kids for an evening so that you get time to yourself or to with your spouse is good.
yeah,
In case of young kids, um, my kids used to go to daycare for the longest time. So Adrija, was a daycare baby, minus the pandemic years.
yeah,
Uh, so that was that. Varenya also went to daycare up to like 4 years of age. So that was the other thing. Now, obviously, uh, the help or the nanny that I have at
yeah,
home is again like it's incredible how attached my kids are with her, and it's important, right? Like if you
yeah.
look after people and they look after you, and it's a lovely symbiotic relationship.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. You talked about grandparents, Apoorva. So tell me how the kids and the grandparents are in your little family.
It's a beautiful thing to look at, Neha. I
Yeah,
think I'll speak of both, my parents' perspective. You've seen your parents parent, and
yeah,
you remember them as, the parents that they were, where they would make tough choices, and they'd make they'll support you, but sometimes, they would
yeah,
set you up, them knocking off all the rules that they had for you, for
yeah,
their kids. Okay,
yeah.
तुमको लड्डू खाना है मैं अभी बनाती हूँ
Huh.
तुमको ये चाहिए मैं अभी लेकर आती हूँ like ये what is, please, what happened to moderation, what happened to value of
Yeah,
money
yeah,
in that. So it's nice to see them turn into kids around their grandkids. So that's one, and really indulge. I think the indulgence that they couldn't possibly at that time because of
yeah,
space in life or whatever it was that they were at, the indulgence that they couldn't shower on you, I think they do that on the grandkids, and it's just, I'm like, हाँ ठीक है चलो. That's how I remember my own grandparents, right?
yeah.
मुझे लाड़ लड़ाने वाले मेरे grandparents थे.
Right.
So it's just, I'm like, हाँ ठीक है, please do that because then the kids will remember. I remember my nani, my grandmom. Like I was sorry to all my cousins, but like I was her favorite grandkid. I was. मतलब मैं
Will your cousin say the same thing? Will your cousin say I was their favorite or
No, they won't. No, they won't. I would go to her house once a year for 1 month for my garmi ka chutti, and
yeah.
every single day, all meals, she would feed me food with her hands. I
Wow.
think, like, I went for my chutti till I was like 14, 15,
Wow.
and uh, every meal I was fed. Like I would be the one who gets to sleep like with my grandma and all, and listen to the stories. So I have beautiful memories of my grand, like my tattoo here, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you see it.
Yeah.
This is inspired by my nanny's name. So yeah, yeah. So I'm like, huh, please do it. Build this. It's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about, parenting being overwhelming. So think of a moment and tell me when it just felt so overwhelming that you had your hands and feet and face full of it, and how did you get through it, and maybe what did it, as we like to say in our MBA, we are all products of that education system. So what did you learn from that experience about your own self and your own strength and resilience, maybe?
One is that yes, it is overwhelming, and I have two, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of sometimes you don't overcome that overwhelm, and
Mm.
sometimes you behave in ways, or you lash out, or you get angry, or whatever. Like uh, you probably wouldn't,
Yeah.
and uh, that happens, and it's something that again you build and learn over time, right?
Yeah.
uh, Also a lot of, like as I said, my daughter is somebody who will question. Her critical reasoning skills and critical thinking is exactly like her dad, right?
Yeah.
So she will really question, and sometimes you overcome, sometimes you don't, is the one thing. And there have been so many moments, Neha, on this, right? Like there will be bedtimes which are stretched,
Yeah.
or both of the kids are unwell and you're also unwell.
Yeah.
So वो सब चीजें होती है, और वो सब जो है, देखो, you will sometimes be kind and nice, and you'll be
Yeah.
able to, right? Your intent should be that every time a pointy situation or a situation of overwhelm appears, because it will come, uh, you have those internal, I don't know, resources within you that
Mm.
you're able to diffuse the situation. Sometimes it's just tension, a lot of tension, right? Like
Yeah.
you're able to diffuse the situation, uh, or you're able to, especially with young kids, right? You can't make them see things rationally.
Yeah.
You can see the rationality of it, but they're mired in their emotions, right? You can't make them see things rationally. So, just acknowledging whatever it is that they're experiencing and being there for them also helps.
Yeah.
Uh, and making sure that uh, if you've like not acted out, or you've reacted in a way which probably wasn't the nicest, you're able to close loop and circle back and tackle the hurt that you've caused, right? So today, if I say something out of anger,
Yeah.
and it happens, right? Like
Yeah.
there's to be done. And sometimes if I tackle something out of anger, or impose my positional power as a parent,
Yeah.
and I not do that actively, but sometimes you do.
Yeah.
Um, my daughter or my son now, because now he sees his big sister do that,
Mm.
is they will demand an apology.
Yeah. Wow.
They will demand an apology. They will forgive me, but they will say that and they will call me out, right? Like, Mama, you said something which was not nice, or you
Yeah.
said something that you won't do and you did, right?
Yeah.
Please apologize,
Yeah.
right? It's to them. So yeah, yeah. And then when things are calmer, and then obviously, love is important, right? Look,
Yeah.
having good quality relationships so that uh, it gets diffused and then it gets settled is something that's what we try to do, what I try to do.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And sometimes it's the smallest things that, leave marks on us. So could you think of a little thing that has happened maybe recently with your kids that has had a surprisingly big impact on you?
Um, Surprisingly big impact on me. Parenting is years and years and hours and minutes of putting things in a person,
Yeah,
and hoping that what you're putting in will make them uh, a better person, make them a more resilient person, all of that. It's like this black hole where you're putting in all of that effort and hoping that at some point in time, wo sahi hoega.
yeah,
Uh, that's broadly that. But my daughter actually she's a headstrong person, right?
yeah,
And she's tiny, but she tends to take charge of situations, or she tends to be a natural leader. And that personality type finds it harder for her to make friends.
yeah,
'Cause she's not like, she wouldn't say the right thing because that's the right thing to say in a group of people.
yeah. Not a
Uh,
diplomat, not a people pleaser.
not a people pleaser, not diplomatic. She'll say facts as facts.
Yeah,
Uh, and I think she's learning on, and I have to tell her that, right? Like in hindsight, okay,
Yeah.
you've said, maybe you think it's the right thing to say, but there's a way to say it, right? Like it may have. तो उसको वो चीज सिखानी पड़ती है, and हम सिखा रहे हैं उसको. Um, and I am also not physically there a lot of
Yeah.
times, right? Like I'm in office or I'm traveling for work, etc. So this one party that we'd gone to, and there were a bunch of girls, and I think one of the girls was left out from the play, and
Yeah.
my daughter, and I was not even in the room, right? I have no idea. This happened like, I don't know, 12, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was not in the room, and my daughter included her in the play, right? She made sure that this girl was not left out, etc. And I keep telling her, right, character, and I tell my daughter this, and I tell my son, उसको बेटे को नहीं समझ आता है, but बेटी को समझ आता है. That you have to do things when nobody is looking,
Yeah.
and that character is. You
Yeah.
have to do things because they are the right things to do, not because
Yeah.
they will get the right recognition. So I keep telling her this, but then she included her in this child. This one, I think last month only, I was in the park with my son, and this girl comes up to me and she's like, "Where's this boy's daughter? Where's this boy's sister?"
Hmm.
Uh, and I was like, मुझे लगा फिर उसने कुछ पार्क में पंगा करा, दिमाग गया मेरा. Uh, so she was like, this boy's sister made sure that I was not left out, and she included me.
Oh,
Like in her words, she said that, like,
yeah.
she's a really nice girl, and she made sure that I was included and I would like to play with her.
Wow.
My daughter was not there, so I think acknowledgement coming from grown-ups is all right.
Yeah.
Uh, it's fine. Like it comes with obviously a grown-up perspective, but words
Yeah.
coming from a really small, like 6-year-old or 7-year-old kid,
Yeah.
uh, was like, "Acha, theek hai, you're something you're doing right, right?"
Yeah.
Like in that black hole of putting values or whatever it is that you're putting in a person, something that you've done is right.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So, so overwhelming in its own way. And Apoorva, you keep talking about, putting in these values. So maybe if we, look further, 20 years from now, or say 30 years from now, when the kids are all grown up, and when they think about how they were parented or how their childhood was, what are those couple of things or a few things that you hope they would remember about their childhood?
Hmm. One thing that I um, try and actually tell myself is not taking the easy way out.
Yeah.
There are so many easy ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Uh, if the child is crying, distracted with the screen, or
Yeah.
give a candy or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, and the other way is making them go through that, whatever it is, and them talking about it or processing it, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and really teaching them the muscle of how to handle what they, because I see so many grown-ups around me, and including myself, right,
Yeah.
get so mired in the emotion, and they don't even realize what they are experiencing and how to get out of it without causing a lot of damage to people around them.
Yeah.
So not taking the easy way out is something that I try and do.
Yeah.
Um, and that is something that my daughter also knows, right? Like, so sometimes when I am taking the easy way out, when I am trying to take the shortcut, my daughter's like, "Mom, are you taking the easy way out?"
Oh, she uses these words.
She uses these words. So yeah, so that's one. The second thing is kindness as a default, right?
Yeah.
So it's okay. And kindness both like to somebody outside and kindness within as well. But kindness being the default or the primary, how do I say, primary perspective of looking at things and acting.
Mm.
So that's something that I hope that they do. And yeah, these I think are the two primary values. And I really hope that they learn to they grow up into people who read and who listen to music and appreciate culture and appreciate um, otherness in people, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to like sameness in people. It's so easy to gravitate towards that. But like I would take them to public parks. Public parks are obviously also places where people from all strata of society come, and because the school bus and the school and everything is also there's so much sameness around it.
Homogeneous. Yeah.
It's very homogeneous. So similar people who study or live in similar places, or who travel similarly, etc., who dine in different places, etc. So putting them in public spaces where they get to interact and play and see otherness also is something, and be comfortable with that, right?
Yeah.
Is something that I try to do.
Wow. That's fantastic.
मैं
And
तुमको बता रही हूँ, मैं सब कुछ ऐसे academic कर लेती हूँ कि
नहीं,
मुझे
but
comfort.
बहुत अच्छा है. I think we need this in the world, when and it's very comforting to hear someone else say all of this, because I relate to it so strongly and so badly that it's just so comforting to hear, okay, fine, Neha, you're not alone. And with us, I'm sure it's also similar with you and Ruchir, because otherwise it wouldn't have been possible to carry on for 9 long years of this way of parenting. So similar with Sid and me also, he's also just this academic person when it comes to everything. Like, he won't, it is not bookish, it's different from being bookish. You read, you absorb, and then you create your own way and experiment and all of that. So, and it is taxing. It's not the easy way by any standard. It's not the easy way, but this is how you want to operate, and it's just a pleasure to hear someone else say this and share their story in this way. But Apoorva, we are coming to an end of our conversation, but I have just two more questions left for you, and I'll ask them and then we'll wrap it up. And I want to ask you, looking back, is there an advice that you give to your pre-parent self? Is there something you wish you had known back then that would have made your journey maybe a little easier, little smoother?
I think I would tell myself to not worry as much, I guess. That's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
But yeah, just that eventually you'll figure it out. So
yeah,
don't worry so much.
yeah. Nice. And finally, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of wisdom that captures who you are and what you believe in as a parent, what would that be?
Uh, be guided by your child. I
Hmm.
think a child uh, will light the path as how they have to be parented. And I think so much of parenting is really just um, navigating your own internal self,
Yeah,
uh, than actually trying and manage or regulating the child.
yeah,
So much of it is just, and have fun with it. Matlab, parenting is so much fun. It is
yeah.
overwhelming, but it is so much fun. Like your kids will challenge you, they will entertain you, they will laugh with you. All of that will happen, and go easy on yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. Apoorva, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It's always inspiring to hear how other parents are navigating the twists and turns of this journey. And, your openness and warmth, it just shines through in everything you've shared. I'm sure our listeners are taking away so much, whether it's a little reminder that you need to be kind to yourself, the importance of creating those little small moments and cherishing them over time, or just the reassurance that it's okay to not have it all figured out. Thank you so
No, I
much.
think this younger generation, no, has they they're really wonderful, but they also try and have a lot of control over outcomes.
Yeah,
Um, and you really don't have those control over the outcomes. So what you can control is the process and the input.
yeah.
And yeah, it's not that hard. Honestly, parenting is not that hard. It is overwhelming sometimes, but it's not hard.
I like how you said, this younger generation, this,
Uh,
hum bade ho gaye.
I have so many young kids in my team,
Yeah,
and I learn so much from them.
yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like telling them, it's not. You can't control the outcomes. It's fine. Take it
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. Thank you, Apoorva. Thank you so much for being here with us. And
Thank you. I really enjoyed catching up with you, Neha. Next time, I'm going to do this parenthood podcast and I will ask you questions and you have them.
done, done. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for this heartfelt conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who might need a little bit of inspiration today. And don't forget to follow us on social media for more updates and behind the scene moments. Remember that no matter where you are in your parenting journey, you're doing an incredible job, and we are here cheering you on every step of the way. Until next time, this is Neha Garg signing off. Stay well and take care.